Hi, Rod Fleming here. In the Philippines, it's rainy season, so it's wet. We've had serious flooding. I might do some soothing rain sounds because we get a lot of those, you know. Seriously. Fortunately, the rain here, the water doesn't actually come in the house. We have lived in houses here where the rain does come in the house, you know, it actually floods, and it's like, oh, we got water on the floor. Well, this one, it doesn't. Anyway, I want to talk today a little bit about, guess what? Ladyboy. Yeah, and I mean the word ladyboy. We know what a ladyboy, generally speaking, is, but in fact, it does seem that a lot of people don't really get this. So I thought we'd go through it a little bit. The word ladyboy itself has local translations all over the Southeast Asia and further, and further afield. You know, in here it's bakla or bading, bayot. There are 179 dialects in the Philippines, 22 recognized languages, and they all have their own word for the same thing. If you go abroad, you know, in Indonesia, it's waria, same in Malaysia. You got baitong, you've got loads, you know, you've got new half in Japan, you've got just dozens of different names. I actually counted them at one point. There's over 100 different names. And they all get sort of conflated into this one word, ladyboy. Now, remember, ladyboy is not a local word. It's an English word. And it defines something that is found in all of these regions under different names. And what happened, it's quite hard to find out about the etymology of these things because nobody was writing about them, but I did. It seems to have been invented by the Americans, of course. American servicemen were stationed in Thailand, and a lot of them took their R&R in Thailand. In fact, Pattaya wouldn't exist. You know, flesh pot Pattaya would not exist were it not for all these servicemen. And the same could be said, you know, of Olongapo. It would just be a nowhere place, but for the huge numbers of American sailors who visited until quite recently, and apparently will be doing so again. Same is true of Clark. I mean, Angeles, what would Angeles be if Clark Air Base wasn't there? It would be nothing. It would just be a little nothing of a provincial town. It doesn't even have a particularly nice centre. There's nothing here except girls and drink, you know, and ladyboys. Lots of ladyboys, and these places are all the same, and they were heavily used, if you like, by American servicemen, which is fine, you know, that's fine. And they invented this word because they're moving around, remember, from country to country on R&R or on their on placement, sorry, whatever it's called, you know, when you're in the military, and they were seeing the same thing, you know, which is incredibly feminine males who are, oh, that's the cat, just ignore him, he's a pain in the ass. Incredibly feminine males who are actually more beautiful than most of the women that are walking around, you know. Understand this, Southeast Asian women, some of them are, I'm talking about double X women, are absolutely gorgeous. You know, some of them are just, you know, really, really, really stunning. They have these incredible features. And the grace, they've got these light, graceful, beautiful bodies. Aye. And they are beautiful. But most Southeast Asian women are, quite frankly, a little bit pear-shaped and a little bit dumpy and a little bit not really that gorgeous, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, girls, but this is true. And of course, the ladyboys, they really sort of shine because they have these this look, which is, it's actually much more attuned to Western tastes. They tend to be a little taller, they tend to be very slender, they tend to be, you know, if they're HSTS, they will be slender. And they have these looks. If they have surgery, they'll have huge boobs. If not, they'll just have little fluffy baby boobs, you know, the hormonal boobs, which a lot of men find very attractive. And they'll have a particular kind of body, which is very attractive, and a specific kind of beauty, which does attract men. And the American servicemen were seeing this all over the place. So the name was the same, you know, whatever the local term was, they just called them ladyboys. And ladyboy actually fits very well, because if you ask one, will say, well, yeah, I'm a boy, but I have the soul of a lady. And they usually use the word lady, not woman, by the way. There's a bit of an issue there, I'll come to that. I have the soul of a lady. So yes, I'm a ladyboy. I mean, you won't find people here. Some women, some trans women here dislike the term ladyboy, but that's because they've been paying too much attention to the opinions of Americans, or they're from a Philan family, or they're from some sort of Americanized group. Most people here who are male but very feminine will say they are one of two things. They will say, both interchangeably, they'll say, oh, I'm gay, or they'll say, I'm a ladyboy. And they use the term ladyboy. I mean, both of these are English terms, and they both have exactly the same translation locally. In this region of the Philippines, both gay and ladyboy mean a bakla, right? It's the same thing. We'll come to the consequences of that in just a moment, but it is quite important. So one thing to understand is that there's nobody, well, very few people here, I mean, maybe a handful, and most of them are, ancient academics that nobody listens to, complaining about the use of the word ladyboy. It's like, that's what we are. Why would we complain? In Filipino sense, you have to think about that in terms of what's called loob and labas. Loob is outside, labas is inside. Yeah. So the idea here of loob and labas. Now, this is in Tagalog, in Filipino, but there are exactly equivalent understandings everywhere in the region of Southeast Asia, and probably all over Asia, actually. Loob means inside, and labas means outside. And that can be your house, I am loob the house right now, and out there is labas. But it also has a metaphysical sense. Loob is your inner self. And, in the West, this would be sort of reduced to, well, I feel I am a woman. Here, it's much more intrinsic. It's really more than feelings. It's like a central knowledge of what you are, which is immutable. You have a soul, and that soul is a lady, a woman. Although they don't usually use the word woman. It's in Tagalog, it's the same for, it's babae, but we'll leave that to side. What they intend is the sense of, you're a woman, but not a real woman. Okay, so you have all of the qualities of a woman except one, which is you can't be a mother, right? And that's really important to remember. So that's your loob, and labas is outside. But that, in this sense that we're using, this metaphysical sense, is the outside of the body. It's not the rest of society. It's what you look like and how you appear to society. So being a ladyboy, which is often, like I say, there's loads of words for it, it's not just being an unmasculine male, which is true, it is being an masculine male. It's not just being effeminate, although it's true, it is being effeminate as a male. It's this understanding of the loob being one thing, but then there's the labas. And you have to bring the labas into line with the loob. Okay? So you seek to get the labas to match your sense of loob. Now I'm going to read a little bit here from Serena Nandra, who is very good, and she's written a lot in this area, so well worth reading. And she'll say, and I'll quote, "It's very common in the Philippines for adolescent boys and young adults who will later marry heterosexually and fully engage in maintaining families to have sex with baklas." Right? That's ladyboys. These males are not marked as homosexuals by society, and they don't experience themselves as such. And Nanda here is doing it very well. They don't experience themselves as such. The Filipino view that only the feminine partner in a sexual relationship is homosexual reinforces the emphasis on the feminine loob as the core of bakla identity. And what is it that we're talking about here? We're talking about being penetrated by men, right? When this is the feminine partner in a sexual relationship. It's the one, in Western terms, that's the bottom. It's the recipient, okay? And being a recipient in the relationship with another male causes you to be a bakla, to be a ladyboy, to be gay. That's what makes you gay, right? There is no sense at all, none, in which someone like me, who is the penetrative sexual partner in a relationship with, Sam is a bakla. She is a ladyboy. But there's no sense in which I'm gay. You go, no, it's obviously not gay. Look at him, And how do you have sex? You do her. Well, that's it. The West is the one that's wrong. You have to understand the West is 4%. The rest of the world is 96%. Nobody in the rest of the world gives a monkey's what the West thinks. We all think you're mad, because you've got these ideas that don't match reality. And this is one of them. The idea that a penetrative male is somehow homosexual is nuts. That person might be pederastic, might be what you kind of feel like, but he's certainly not homosexual. Absolutely not. His unique penetration of others, the fact that he only does that, means he's not gay. That's it. End of story. There is no debate here, and there is no debate anywhere outside the 4% zone. Sorry, folks. You just are wrong. Anyway, going on here with Serena Nandra. Masculine appearing men who are assumed to take the inserter sexual position are also assumed to have a masculine loob. Obviously. They are thus real men, even as they have sexual relations with bakla. Okay? In spite of the fact that male partners of bakla acknowledge sexual satisfaction, and yeah, it's lovely, it's great, from their bakla relationships, the masculine appearing partner stoutly denies any deep affection or emotional impact in the relationship. Now, I would not actually quite agree with Serena there. That might well be the case in traditional relationships between baklas and the local boys, the local men, who are probably trying to keep the relationship secret anyway. But I certainly know many men now who are in relationships with ladyboys. That's HSTS ladyboys, the receptive type. And they do have really strong feelings. I mean, I have very strong feelings for Sam. I wouldn't be here. She has real health problems, which are a big problem to deal with. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have strong feelings for her. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not that much of a gentleman. If I didn't have really strong feelings for her, then, I would be gone. It's that simple. But I do. And I'm not alone. I've spoken to many men like that, and they're often, it's Westerners, because Westerners are less, we are outcasts, We don't conform to the ideas of the 4%. So as far as they're concerned, we are outlaws. Absolutely. Men without a name. And as far as the locals are concerned, we're foreigners. So we have weird ideas. So it's like we occupy a niche. And that niche is actually very valuable to ladyboys, because it's really only with a foreigner that a ladyboy can establish a true long-term relationship. Because the foreigner is not going to rush off and find a double X woman to marry and have kids with. He probably already has kids, So it's like, that one's a safe bet. He's okay. And he does what he needs me to do. I have to say that ladyboys are, they're very strongly impressed by penis size. And it is true that Western guys tend to be a bit bigger, and it's like, yeah, it hurts a bit, but ooh, it's good. That's definitely an attractor. Anyway, to get back to this idea of ladyboys, although the masculine appearing partner will stoutly deny affection, and I think that on the part of actual, local boys, that's true, they'll deny it. Even if they feel it, they'll deny it. But the feminine bakla is deeply emotionally affected by all her relationships with men. I mean, she's really, these girls will fall on they wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they'll fall for the most unsuitable men. Like that. Bang, gone. She's absolutely gone on this guy who's just totally wrong for her. But that's how it is if you're a bakla, I guess. This is Serena Nandra again. Right, so I'll cut the dog fight out. Beauty in the Philippines is associated with successful performance. Baklas, as males who display a highly successful ability to present themselves as women within certain contexts, which basically excludes motherhood, are closely associated with the concept of beauty in their own eyes and in the eyes of society. This transformative ability is expressed in their specialized occupations in fashion, entertainment, hairstyling, beauty salons, and particularly their participation in beauty contests, which are everywhere here, and they start very young. I mean, we're talking 5 years old. All these Americans who worry about sexualization of children, well, don't come here. Do not come here. Bakla identity, formed around the inside-outside structure of the loob and the labas, calls for the loob, that is the inside, immaterial, female spirit, to be exposed by inscribing feminine beauty on the body, which is the labas. And that is basically what you've got when you're talking about a ladyboy, right? It's really so central to her identity and to her existence in society and to her acceptance by everyone else, that to ignore it, to see it in terms of, in the West, there's this ridiculous concept in the West, and it is absurd, that a simple cosmetic operation, right, the inversion of your penis, literally, can change your sex. There's no more ridiculous statement on the planet. Of course it doesn't. You're not changed. You're exactly who you were after the operation as you were before it. No difference is made at all. It's purely cosmetic. That's all it is. And frankly, most people who have it shouldn't have it. That's another point. But that's not an issue here, because they don't have that notion that changing the appearance of a particular body part will change your inner nature. Excuse the dogs. Your inner nature is that of bakla. Your loob is already a female spirit. That is what makes you a bakla. That is what makes you a gay. That is what makes you a ladyboy. Boy with the spirit of a lady. Do you understand this now? To try and get it. It's not, particularly Americans are totally obsessed by superficial, by the completely superficial. It's like they're far more concerned with appearances than reality, and that's why they buy stupidly expensive watches and things like that. I mean, who the fuck wears a £90,000 watch in a place like this? I mean, you'll get your hand cut off. Seriously, this is a fake. Because I'm not stupid enough to wear a real one, in a place where there is a high chance that it might get robbed. But Americans, they're so stupid. They're so obsessed with this, this virtue signaling and this signaling of, things that they would like people to see them as, that they think they get this crazy idea that a little bit of a nip and a tuck, and Bob's your uncle now, you're a woman. Of course you're not. No, you're not. You're just a male with a vagina. That's it. And it's a neo-vagina. It's not hooked up to anything. So it's a totally different view. For the bakla, the ladyboy, the gay here, not necessary. Her understanding of herself is not affected by that. I mean, yes, girls here do have genital reconstruction surgery, what you might call sex change, They're nearly all pageant queens, and the reason they do it is, they come with quite big packages, and they're difficult to tuck. And they feel that, when they're performing on the pageant stage, having this thing between their legs counts against them. So they go, hell, I don't use it. With my boyfriend, he penetrates me. I mean, I don't use this damn thing. Let's just get rid of it. You know, I know hundreds of ladyboys here, and certainly not, you know, intimately, but I have spoken over the years. I've interviewed and talked to and got to know an awful lot of ladyboys. I know two out of all of that who've had GRS. Two. So that's like, you know, that's well under 1%. Okay, not a representative sample, but it's still quite strong when you compare it to the situation in the West, where it's actually a majority, even of HSTS, who actually do go through the system and have the surgery. We're talking about males here, by the way, not females. So it's a very different thing, because the reason for that is that for the ladyboys, their sense of themselves is more important than a detail of appearance like that. It's like, well, so what, you know? I can tuck it out of the way if you don't like it, you know? It doesn't matter to me, you know? You don't have to touch it. I mean, a lot of them won't let you touch it. It's like, no, that's off limits. But they're not really obsessive about that, you know? It's like, it just doesn't do anything for them. Most of them can't get erect because of the hormones, or they certainly can't sustain an erection. So the thing is basically just like, it's like a you know? But it is part of them, and they don't particularly feel a need to lose it, but it doesn't define them in any way at all. Having a cosmetic vagina does not define them as being a woman. They can't be women. They know that. But they can have this association between the loob and the labas, such that when they look in the mirror, when the people look at them, they go, what a beautiful woman. And that's really all they're concerned about. You know, it's a really important thing for them. So that's Ladyboy, developed by, of course, our old friends, the Americans, but actually signifying some really quite deep concepts that are apparently, you know, they're not foregrounded in the West. In the West, it's because it's all, you know, Americans are all about appearance. You know, they don't, you know, terribly shallow thinking people. They don't see it in that sense, you know. It's like, well, you can't be a woman with a penis. And a ladyboy would say, well, you can't be a woman anyway, if you were born male. What flipping difference would it make whether I've got a dick or not? You know, I mean, I've got a perfectly good asshole, and that's where it's going, you know. And that's basically it. So, you know, once again, the 4% are really out on a limb here. It's like, you know, nobody here even, I mean, they laugh at the 4%er ideas. They go, what? You think that having an operation can actually make you a woman? They find that ridiculous, because it is ridiculous. What defines a woman here is motherhood. And yeah, it is absolutely true. Barren women, women who don't have children, or women who for some reason didn't marry and therefore can't have children, not legitimately anyway, they're not on the same status as a woman. A mother is. Being a single unmarried mother, being a woman without kids, these are all basically, and baklas, these are all right at the bottom. You know, you're on the lowest social stratum that exists. The ones with real, you know, status are the mothers. And their status comes from two things: how many kids they have and how successful their kids are. So being a woman has nothing to do with cosmetic surgery. That is ridiculous to an Asian. That's a completely ridiculous concept. And to me, you know, it is a ridiculous concept. Having a cosmetic vagina installed does not mean that you can have babies. Sorry, it doesn't. Maybe sometime in the future that is going to be possible, but certainly not the case now. And even if it did become the case, there are pretty serious ethical considerations to be taken into account here. So the whole thing about Ladyboy, you have to understand this concept. It's not just they are homosexual males. They definitely are homosexual males, and they will all accept that. They might not like the name Ladyboy, but they'll go, yeah, I'm gay. I was born male, and I love men. My God, I'm obsessed by cock, you know, and they love it. And so they go, yeah, that's what I am, and I'm really good at it. you know, and you look at this absolute bombshell, and you go, yeah, I gotta admit, you're pretty damn good at this. So they feel validated. They feel that it's all worthwhile. It's like, yeah, I'm gorgeous. I'm gorgeous. My loob is properly represented to the world around me. And if she gets a boyfriend, and I don't mean just a casual, you know, bang in the bottom in the darkness of an alley. I'm talking about somebody who stands by her and looks after her and goes through and has a life with her. She gets one of those, woo! You know, that's real status. In bakla terms, that's enormous status. You really have arrived. Anyway, I'm going to cut it now because it's getting a bit long. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you later.